summit.
Indeed, and let's take this conversation forward, seeing how that change of numbers and what it means and what exactly, you know, Kenyans can expect going forward now that the numbers have changed. That's the conversation I'll be having here at the summit. And I'd like to introduce my guest this evening, Jennifer Shamala, Karibu Sana, and Elisha Ongoya, both lawyers and respected persons in this country. IEBC just say that they're going to change the percentages and talk about the total votes cast. In the beginning, we were dealing with only valid votes, the valid votes cast. Let me start with you, Elisha. From where you sit, what does the Constitution say? Just to set the tempo and just set the base for this conversation on that.
The answer to this question is to be found in Article 138 of Article 4 of the Constitution. Whom can the IEBC declare as validly elected president in the first round of this election? It is somebody who gets more than 50% of all the votes cast. More than 50% of all the votes cast. And then at least 25% of the votes in more than half of the county. So that is the formula. And that's where that formula of 50% plus 1. 50% plus 1 is the simplified version of more than 50% of the, it should not be mistaken for 51%. It is 50% of the votes plus 1 extra vote, which may be 0.00 whatever percent. As long as anything goes beyond the 50% mark, that is sufficient to make somebody, in addition to the second criteria, to make somebody declare validly elected as president. Now, the mistake I think that the IEBC did in their programming for relaying the results is that they began working on percentages anchored, the factor being the valid votes cast. The Constitution does not use that word. And the law is very clear on what a vote cast is, and among the votes cast, a valid vote is. And that's why, in declaring results at the polling station, the presiding officer has to fill in all the votes that were cast, then fill the valid votes cast before he itemizes the votes garnered by every candidate. So once the IEBC now goes back to what the law expects of them and reworks out these percentages using the function of the votes cast, the percentages will change in a manner that is significant for purpose of this close contest.
All right, 50 plus 1, Jennifer, for you.
And yes, yesterday we had this discussion about the spoiled votes, and I was deeply concerned about the number of spoiled votes. As we talk today, we don't know where these spoiled votes are from. What do they mean by spoiled votes? Do they mean that maybe somebody perhaps elected a presidential candidate and put the presidential ballot in another ballot box? And I'm beginning to get concerned because we may have a situation where we're going to have a discussion, which we're doing right now, on what is a vote cast and what is a valid vote cast. Because ultimately, if we have to go by the Constitution, we must take into consideration that every citizen, and it says here in Article 38, and I'm talking about political rights, every citizen has a right to free, fair, and regular elections based on universal suffrage and free expression of the will of the elector. Now, if I have not had a free expression of my will, then is this going to be a free, fair, and credible election, is the question one may ask.
And for me to add value, I think, first of all, the regulations will be clear on what is a vote cast. A vote that is cast has no necessarily technical meaning. Once you have thrown your vote in the ballot box, you have cast that vote. Now, once the votes fall into the ballot box, there are various types of votes. There are valid votes inside that ballot box, which is a vote that is correctly marked, a vote which, once you look at it, it clearly tells the intention of the voter. Then there are votes that the presiding officer must reject. There are various votes that the presiding officer must reject. Number one, a vote that didn't have an IEBC stamp. And you see, that could be, you could say it's a mistake of the IEBC, but the law is an answer, as they say. That's a vote that will reject. Two, if a voter votes for more than one candidate, if you believe in Serikali ya Mseto, and you hope that if I voted for both Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, that is another rejected vote. Then the law says, if you get a ballot paper that is of a different color than that election in the ballot box, that's a rejected vote. And this, I think, is where the key problem comes. You know that the various elections have different colors of ballot papers. If I find a gubernatorial ballot paper in the presidential ballot box. That will be a blue ballot box among a blue ballot paper among white ballot papers. It is of a different color because the regulations say if you find a ballot paper of a different color, you reject it. So these are the various votes that have, if you find a ballot paper that is of a serial range that is out of or the ordinary. See, those ballot papers are serialized. If you get a totally strange serial number, you must reject it because that would definitely be strange material introduced. So there are various votes that then will be rejected, but nonetheless there are votes that have been cast for purposes of working out the percentages. I beg to differ, and that's what I'm saying. It's not very clear because when you can cast the vote and then you have spoiled votes and you have stray votes and you have definitions of all kind of votes. Now, my question is, I heard the IEBC chairman say today that they will also take these votes and put them along with the valid votes. Where are you going to allocate these spoiled votes?
But the question then, what we're trying to understand tonight, Jennifer, is what is the threshold? What did the Constitution envisage? What is the spirit and the law of this? What did we really want? That is the question.
Yes, what was the spirit? The spirit, one would assume, is that it is of the valid votes cast, not the spoiled votes, because then we'll have to now take the Electoral Commission to task and ask them, why is it that there was such a high number of, what is the word they're using? Rejected votes. Yes. It's going up to 5%. And this is unacceptable because when that has happened, you have a situation whereby the people, the elector, the voter, has not had the ability or the opportunity to express what it is they wanted to express. And I discussed the issue of voter education and civic education yesterday. Now, they must come and explain to us when they're talking about rejected votes. What are these rejected votes? Where are these rejected votes? And why have these votes been rejected? Because my reading is it would be the number of valid votes cast.
Well, if the people of Kenya in making this constitution had intended that the votes we take into account as a factor of working out the percentages would be the valid votes cast, nothing would have been easier than to say valid votes cast. The people of Kenya, in their wisdom, or you may say lack of the same, said the votes cast. And
yes, but it was, with all due respect, my friend, my colleague here, it was not the people of Kenya who finally and ultimately drafted this constitution.
Okay. Let's go to
But the second question that my colleague raises is important about the concern around the volume, the sheer numbers of rejected votes. And I agree with her. But to my mind, that is a law reform question. After this process is over, when we are introspecting as a country, when the Commission is introspecting as a responsible Commission, it must ask itself, moving forward, what is it that went wrong that led to very many votes being rejected? That's a reform question. But for purposes of calculating the threshold percentages, then that reform question is irrelevant.
Because the question tonight, Jennifer, regardless of what the Constitution says, is tonight, what numbers then are we looking at? Should we be looking at the valid votes cast or the total vote cast?
How can you count, when you're counting votes, what is he going to do? What is the Electoral Commission going to do with these rejected votes? Are they going to hold them in abeyance, or are they going to, if that is the case, then I suggest that the Electoral Commission looks at these rejected votes and see what was the intent, scrutinize now all these votes, and
but
now
Jennifer, with all due respect, we have time to go through, because these come from countrywide. These are over 300,000 votes. Are we going to have time between today and tomorrow to say, call in all these votes and go and look at the intention of Jennifer?
I think that what ultimately is important for this country is that it is seen to be a free, fair and credible election. That's what is important. And if it's going to take more time, then so be it.
But my question is this. What then is a free, fair, and credible election? It is an election conducted in accordance with the law. And that is the surest test, in accordance with the law. For purposes of declaration of an elected president, Article 138 is the operative article. It tells us to calculate which candidate has garnered more than 50% of the votes cast. And I think with that in mind, these percentages have to be reworked, and it will definitely have a significant, albeit marginal, but if you look at the way the contest is, that marginal difference will be significant for purpose of final outcome of this election.
But in accordance with this law is the fact that the sovereign will of the people must be expressed, and it must be taken account of, and the sovereign will of the people is expressed through the casting of their vote.
Including the rejected ballots. All right. We're talking about this phenomena that has just happened. We do understand about 300,000, and numbers keep rising. About 5.9% of the total votes cast are rejected ballots, and if you like. And that is a debate and a conversation that the IEBC is having now, and Kenyans must grapple with it and try to make sense of it, and if you like.
Yeah, I know.